Can you join me if you are able to stand for pledge allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We're starting with our public hearing on the 2021 tax levy.
Collins? Here. Boyle? Here. Kilburg? Here. Lee?
Here.
Owen? Yusuf Abramson?
Here.
Bessler?
Here. Okay, moving on to the 2021 Main Township High School District 207 tax levy.
Tonight we are having a public hearing on the tax levy, which was published in the newspaper. We are increasing the levy by 4%, even though we are under the threshold for complying with the truth in taxation. As trying to be transparent with our taxpayers, we always have published the levy in the newspaper. Even though CPI is 1.4%, which is what any existing homeowner should be paying in new taxes unless their assessment changes. There are a couple of unique components this year. We have the downtown display and TIF rolling off, which will bring in about $1.6 million, as well as various other additional new growth, which will bring in about another $1.3 million. So the vast majority of the tax levy increase is related to new property coming on the tax rolls. The board will also be talking about an abatement to taxes that we don't have to decide upon until the March board meeting, and that discussion will take place during the Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting. But tonight's purpose of the public hearing is to allow an opportunity for the public to ask any questions or provide any comments on the published tax levy.
Okay. At this time, anybody who's present who has direct questions or making statements to the board and or administration regarding the 2021 tax levy, can speak now. If there is anyone, anything else, Mary?
No, that's it.
Okay, so we'll adjourn this meeting. We'll move on to our regular scheduled Board of Education meeting. We already said the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm going to call that to order and then we'll do roll call for this meeting.
Collins? Here. Boyle?
Here.
Kilburg?
Here.
Lee?
Here.
Owen? Yusuf Abramson?
Here.
Bessler?
Here. Okay, we always start with our favorite agenda item of the evening, District 207's best. This evening it's for elective area of achievement, and we're going to start with Maine West.
All right. So I'm really happy to present this award tonight to Tommy Burke. Tommy and his classmates are living a senior year in which we need them more than ever. They're the only students in the school who have seen a full year through in person from start to finish. They are the most mature in their understanding of how fleeting these moments together are, of how these 4 years of high school fit into the greater flow of a life that will carry them all to different places and soon. They know that their time with us has been short. Tommy represents the best of Maine West because in every minute of every day, at home or in our halls, fields, and classrooms, he has made the most of every precious second. We honor him tonight not only for his achievements in electives, specifically in his engineering and architecture classes, but also for the leadership that has brought us back to who we are as a school community. Tommy has excelled in school consistently since walking through our doors freshman year. He began exploring from the very first minute, taking engineering courses and then summer school to make room in his schedule for more. He took CAD, civil engineering and architecture, computer integrated manufacturing, advanced CAD, AP Environmental Science, internship, AP Calc, AP Physics, Spanish 3-year 4, and AP Human Geo is just some of the electives that he's pursued with zeal to arrive at a strong sense of his mission. He wants to create and design. He leans towards civil engineering because he's interested in the public processes and project management sides of the field. He is engaged fully in a dizzying list of extracurriculars: Skills USA, DECA, Key Club, National Honor Society, National English Honor Society, Pi Sigma Pi, the Westerner Link Crew, Varsity Baseball, and WAPA, which is the Warrior Athletics Players Association, in which he's an officer. He has done job shadowing, he's applied for internships, and he's been asked by Ms. Hanson to be a part of our Maine West Outdoor Spaces project, in which student design teams will propose plans for spaces such as the pool patio at Maine West, which may be due for an overhaul in the coming years. He is a vital member of the principal's leadership team, and last year during homecoming, he won the first ever all-school bags tournament with his department. I asked Tommy at the end of our interview what he wanted to make sure people knew about him, and he said he hoped people know him as a positive kid who always tries his very best, who respects and is kind to others to help them be their best too. And his teacher's comments will illuminate all of that, precisely those qualities and more. They all said that Tommy is a very special young man. Mr. Howenstein said that his social skills are particularly impressive. He greets me each day with a genuine inquiry as to how my morning has been, making eye contact the entire time. He's especially kind and respectful of the people around him, and he has a wonderful sense of humor. Ms. Jacob, who is going to come after you for West Side Dance Company. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
I figured.
She said that Tommy is the guy that everyone wants to be around. He has amazing leadership skills and is kind to everyone he comes into contact with. He is a student who comes to mind when I think of an ambassador for Maine West or a guide for a transfer student. He would make them so comfortable and introduce them to people. He would make them love Maine West like he does. Ms. Murray shared that Tommy's contributions to our classroom environment loom large even years after he has moved on in school. He is a remarkably energetic and positive person, always friendly, always mindful of and caring for others. It is fitting that he would be receiving an academic award for his electives, as that is yet another example of his gregarious spirit, maximizing his engagement in our school community. Ms. Voigt, for whom Tommy serves as a senior leader in freshman PE, emailed me back immediately on the day I asked for comments and said, "I was just talking to another teacher this morning about how great Tommy is. He stepped into the leader role with confidence and determination to make his freshman class feel included and have an amazing year. He goes out of his way to include every student, motivate others, and be a good role model. Every day, Tommy walks into class asking how he can help and is excited for the day. He's exceptional and very deserving of this recognition." Mr. Fleming worried that he wouldn't be able to express well just how impactful Tommy's contributions truly are. What a special kid. He is a person that our younger students at Maine West should look up to and emulate what makes him special. Tommy's ability to connect with others helps people belong to our classroom, school, and community in a meaningful and genuine way. When you talk with Tommy, you know he's listening and that he values what you have to say. The sincerity and commitment to valuing others is a big part of why Tommy Burke is so special. Ms. Barba shared that she taught Tommy exclusively virtually last year, but this year he made a point of coming by to meet her in person and say hello. And this may have seemed like a small thing to him, but it was very meaningful to her and speaks to the incredible person that Tommy is. Mr. Walsh noted that Tommy's academic work is superior, powered by his steady work ethic and seemingly limitless curiosity. But beyond his academic excellence, Tommy has demonstrated great leadership in and out of the classroom as an ambassador of goodwill at Maine West through his unfailingly positive attitude and his enthusiasm for all the opportunities he sees before him each day. My class and this entire school are better places because of Tommy's influence. He is good for the soul and a reminder of what we want in all our students. And notably, these teachers and more whom I couldn't fit into this presentation work in every department in our school. So Tommy's reach spans the whole of Maine West, and his impact is surely deeper than he knows. We have needed every ounce of it this year, and as he always does, Tommy came through. With pride and gratitude, I present him tonight as Maine West in 2 seconds. And Tommy, can you come on up, and Dr. Wallace and Mr. Aberson will give you a word. Can you share who's with you tonight? Can you introduce your folks?
So with me tonight is my sister, Ashley, my mom, and then we have my dad, and then we have my grandma, and my grandpa in the back. We have the whole family here tonight.
Tommy, can you share your plans for next year?
So my plans for next year, as of right now, was to get into civil engineering. So far, every place I've applied to, I have been very, very happy and lucky to get into the engineering programs, hoping to pursue that farther into college.
That's great. That's not love, you earned that.
Okay, Maine East.
On behalf of Dr. Pressler, the faculty and staff of Maine East High School, I'm pleased to name Lauren Ike as District 207's best in recognition of achievement in her elective studies. Over the past 4 years, Lauren has taken a challenging course load that has included AP Psychology, AP Stats, AP Physics 1, AP English Literature and Composition, AP Calc, BC, AP US History, AP Chemistry, AP English Language and Composition, AP European History, AP World History, and she is a member of our Physical Education Leaders Program. Her elective courses have included study of Spanish language, 4 years of orchestra, health care careers, CNA, which is the Certified Nursing Assistant Program, early childhood development, and she will be taking medical terminology during second semester Lauren is president of East Health Occupation Students of America HOSA Club, where she is a state voting delegate. She is president of National Honor Society, and she's a member of the Rotary Interact. Lauren is also a member of East Chapter of the Tri-M International Music Society, has been a member of the Pit Orchestra for VShow, and is a member of the Animal Awareness Club, and she is leader in her church choir. Lauren spent a summer as a naturist intern at the River Trail Nature Center for the Forest Preserve of Cook County, where she helped maintain the grounds and gardens, prepared food for the rescue animals, and created educational children's activities. She's also a member of the Student Conservation Association, where she has worked to restore habitats, maintain grounds, and work on gardens, and helped to create public trails that are wheelchair accessible. Several of Lauren's past and present teachers alluded to her maturity, organization, her responsible habits, and her consistent leadership by example. As one teacher put it, she makes it easy and enjoyable to be her teacher. Another teacher shared that Lauren is a wonderful student, willing to share her insights and ask serious questions. Even when Lauren wasn't present, she was fully engaged as a keen listener and asked questions that pushed the discussion forward. Her work reflects a mature mind and clarity of thought. Maine East Orchestra director stated that she always has a positive attitude coming into class, works well with other students in sectionals and small groups, and demonstrates a strong work ethic. Additionally, she is committed to being a violinist in the pit for this year's VShow, while she was balancing her NHS duties, her curricular work, her contributions to class discussion, and is always eager to ask questions and seek help when needed. Physical education teacher Nancy Lorette shared this experience. I currently have Lauren in my 8th grade survival swim class. Lauren was a student in my survival swim class as a sophomore and grew a tremendous amount, not only in swimming skills, but also in her leadership abilities. She told me at the end of her first semester that if she made it into the leader program, she wanted to be a leader for the survival swim so she could share her experience as a student in the class with others who are in the same position she was. And she has done just that. She easily gets into the pool with students that need help, teaches warm-ups, specific lessons that Ms. Lorette asks her, and has developed great relationships with all the students in the class. They trust her, respect her, and see her as a new friend as well. There's a unique bond between students in the survival swimming class, shared fears and anxiety. Nevertheless, it's a unique environment that Lauren is a part of, and she relishes and understands the value of it as both a participant and a leader. Mathematics teacher Ms. MacArthur is Lauren's AP stats teacher this year, and notes that she's generally a very conscientious student who works really well with other students in class, asks questions when she doesn't understand things, and attends office hours when she needs help or make corrections. And that she has a very high expectation for herself and puts in the work to achieve them. Ms. MacArthur also noted that when she has her supervision in the math area of the Learning Lab, that Lauren is often there, not necessarily to get help with her stats homework, but with a few of her friends that are Calculus AB or Calculus BC. She took Calculus BC last year and will willingly help Calc kids in whatever way she can. Finally, Tess Love, CTE teacher, shared these insights about Lauren. I have had the privilege of having Lauren as a student in 2 of the elective courses that I teach, and she will be another one of my classes in the spring. As a student in my early childhood development and my healthcare careers class, Lauren provided to be conscientious, determined, and mature. She always puts an incredible amount of effort into each of her assignments. I was lucky to witness her passion, drive, and experience in the healthcare field through a variety of discussions, activities, and experiences. Lauren has a goal of one day working in the healthcare industry as either an obstetrician or a neurosurgeon. This goal has been the focus of her drive and effort in her coursework at Maine East High School. As the HOSA club sponsor, I was impressed with Lauren's persistence and ambition to get the club up and running while we were remote due to the pandemic, as well as her dedication to the club, serving as president for 2 years. As Lauren's teacher over the past 4 years, I have witnessed her resilience, perseverance, and dedication to our academics, her school, and the healthcare field throughout the pandemic. Lauren has taken several elective courses that will ultimately help her be successful in her future in healthcare. Lauren has continued to impress me year after year with her determination to be successful in healthcare-related course and leadership roles at Maine East High School. Lauren is one of those wonderful students who quietly goes about her business and in doing so ensures the success of others as well. Accordingly, it gives me great pleasure to recognize Lauren as one of 207's best. The work she does at school each day helps make our community a better place for everyone. Lauren, if you can come forward. Lauren, can you share just real quick who you brought with you tonight?
Yes, I brought my dad and my mom and my eldest sister Chelsea and my older sister Jenny.
Thank you. And what are your plans for next year?
I plan on going into healthcare and I hope on staying in the Chicagoland region.
Thank you so much and congratulations.
Congratulations. Okay, moving on to Maine South.
All right, Maine South would like to recognize Emily Hine this month for 207's Best. Languages have always been a major aspect of everything happening in Emily's home. Her father is a native German speaker, and so Emily has studied that at the highest level all the way through AP. And then also she decided, well, what the heck, I might as well just learn French too. And she's taken that all the way too through AP as well. So she is a polyglot and will use those languages all over the world, literally. She's also in just about everything you could put your mind to at school. She's been a 3-year member of the tennis team. She's a member of Key Club, Southwards, French NHS, German NHS, and she's participated in the German class UIC Day, where that's a large German competition that's pretty reputable. Taking prizes in the German spelling bee, and will compete again this year in the essay competition. So looking forward to that. She also volunteers at Exodus World Services, where she makes packages for food for refugee families who are new to the Chicagoland area. So she gives back a lot to her community as well. Just some quotes about the awesome things that Emily is doing. So Ross Crane, Emily's AP French teacher, said, "Emily is a dedicated student of language. She seeks to really learn, understand, and use the language and consistently performs well. She is also helpful to the students she sits with. I have no doubt that she will do very well on the AP French test, and all these languages will help her succeed in the future." Emily's PE and Martial Arts Club sponsor, and Emily's also part of that Martial Arts Club group, Beth Vanowski says, "It does not surprise me that Emily is being honored for excellence in the elective area of achievement. Emily has shown excellence in many areas throughout her entire high school career. She's joined Martial Arts Club as a freshman and has participated consistently through her 4 years. The altered schedules because of COVID could not break her diligence and commitment to the program, as Emily routinely participated in club meetings online. I had Emily in health education her sophomore year and martial arts and physical education her junior and senior years. Emily embodies South shows up, but not only does she show up, she gives it her best in all situations each and every day, and the results are stellar." Margaret Wolf, Emily's German 5 accelerated teacher, says, "Emily consistently demonstrates her love of languages and interest in learning about other cultures. As a polyglot studying both German and French for all 4 years, Emily has had a positive impact on both language programs at Maine South. Emily has already successfully taken the AP exam for German and plans to take the AP exam for French this year. Emily's accolades include a first-place trophy in the annual German competition at UIC, a gold medal on the German national exam, and induction into the German National Honor Society. Emily is a strong language student and a great example to her peers of world citizenship." And then finally, I just want to remark about Darcy Cheneau, Emily's AP English Lit and Comp teacher, who said, "Emily is an insightful reader and an absolute pleasure to have in class. Her writing is exquisite in its attention to detail. She wrote a description of her grandmother's garden that was simply breathtaking." So I wanted to close with that quote, Emily, because I think what we do here in our schools is just try to make a rich kind of foundation for you to grow. And you've done so much of that, and we're so excited to see everything that you're going to do later on in the world. So please join us up here to receive your award. And if you could tell us who's with you tonight and what you want to do next year.
I'm here with my mom and my dad, and I'm currently undecided, but I do plan on staying in the Midwest for college.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Mr. Judd. Now is the opportunity for all of our student recipient award winners to step outside with their families and their friends and take pictures. You're more than welcome to come join us, or you can go home and eat burgers. Congratulations again. Any public comments? Update from the superintendent?
Just real quickly, we have our second Community Advisory Council building tour this Thursday. We're going to visit Maine East. We went to South last month, and then we'll come back in February and see West once we get the cafeteria all done. So we kind of staged it so that we could go when the phases were done. But it has been just amazing to bring the members of the Community Advisory Council. Not all of them have been into all the buildings yet, so it's been really nice to take them throughout the buildings and just see how transformed the buildings are. And board members, I know a lot of you have been around to see them, but if you haven't, especially once West gets done in February, if you haven't been in, let's make sure we get everybody in to see them. It is just, I've seen really good pictures of what the cafeteria is going to look like. It's going to be just amazing. So it's hard to believe from where we started how far we've come on this when you look at all the progress. But each of the buildings, they've truly been transformed. I mean, there's nothing short of that, and it's just really been amazing. Kudos to Mary, of course, who just spent so much of her time and bandwidth on this all day long. But really been cool to see it, and I can't wait to see us get phase 3 knocked out next summer as well. So that's pretty much it from me this week.
Update from any board members? Okay. Construction update, Mary.
In your packet is the November construction update. We're kind of at a lull at East and South where we're doing some work in the hallway, but not a lot of active construction at West. We have the most construction going on, as alluded to just now. The lower level of cafeteria is, we're putting the finishing touches on that. That will be opened on January 4th. But also B-Wing gym, that conversion in the first and second floor, which will be converted into the teacher's workroom and the multi-tiered systems of support space, which is anything students need to get help on will be completed in the late spring. Other than that, we last month approved the phase 3 bid. We are looking at phase 4 design. We'll get an estimate on that in the coming month, and then we'll bid that this spring. So I'll entertain any questions that anybody has on the construction update.
Okay. Monthly status finances, also Mary.
Sure. In your board packet, and I'll point out that I gave you a new chart of revenue at your desk. I noticed an error in it because our revenue is pretty much consistent across the 3 years. The one in your board packet showed revenue a little bit lower. They had put in some wrong percentages. But on the revenue and expenditure sides, there's really nothing dramatic or unusual about this point in the year. We are tracking similar to what we have done each and every year. Some of the variances might be in our capital areas where we got further along on a project in the summer. But this is all of the November stuff, and we're well within budget. So I will entertain any questions that anybody has on the financial report. And
Any questions, comments? No? Okay.
okay, awesome.
We're good. Thank you.
And the tip update?
Also in your packet is the TIF report. So this information is based on the 2020 annual reports which are presented to the Joint Review Board during the course of 2021. So there, some of the highlights would be that we've got the 2 new Niles TIF, which are new to this one. We have a new Displays TIF, which was new in 2020. And then this is the final reporting year for the downtown Displays TIF. But the TIFs are all progressing well. They're starting to get some improvements or projects going on the later Displays TIFs 6 and 7. But this report will give you a snapshot of what the highlights were from the 2020 report, as well as the most up-to-date current EAV, and will provide you also the base EAV. So I'll entertain any questions that anybody has on the TIP report.
So Mary, basically for the desk TIF, this all eight areas will be mature, this kind of last phase in a way, or just for?
Just TIP 1.
One
So the first line of each of the TIPs has the year that they were created in the year that they're expiring. So you can see TIP 1 in downtown displays will expire in 2020. So that's why 21, it'll come back onto the district's tax rolls as new growth.
So others, we still have a couple more years.
The other ones have a couple more, and some of them are very recent and will have.
Alternative for a long time.
Correct.
So I have a question, just to clarify. Tip number 1, the downtown displays tip that is expiring this year. So as of next year, that will give the district $2 million in additional funds.
Correct, between 1.6 and 2 million. And you can see, if you look at what we'll get in new growth, is the difference between the current EAV, which is the 90 million, and the base EAV, which is 20 million. And that was the EAV in 1985 when the TIP was created. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, thank you, Mary. Instructional services, Sean.
So you have a memo in your board packet related to the state school report cards. They were released on October 31st. So we had our board meeting next night, so we decided to wait until December to present that information. As you can see, it's not full information. While there are some scores out and have been released, I'm sure you've seen news reports on those. The entirety of the report and the rankings of the schools with their designations will not be out until April. And so I included also in that memo the factors for rating, so you have a sense of how much each portion that were assessed upon counts toward your overall final rating that will come in April. So I'm happy to entertain any questions now, but I'm sure we'll talk more about this in the spring when the ratings are released.
I do have just one question just right now. So under school finances, and hopefully you can explain this. It looks like under Maine South, we're spending $19,000 per student, but in Maine East, we're spending $21,000 per student, and Maine West, we're spending $21,000 per student. Is that correct? And
That's correct. And why? Part of it is both East and West are Title I schools. So your Title I funds have to be spent at those schools. And also those two schools have ELL programs, which increases and is a high expenditure program for those schools.
And what is ELL?
It is English Language Learners. It's a bilingual program.
Thank you.
And that data, when it's consistent, you can go back many, many years. We have always, like, it's pretty much lined up.
Yeah, and one of the things that you're required to report it out this way, because what they want the data to show is that your Title I schools have greater than or equal to spending versus your non-Title I. Because they were finding in certain school districts, perhaps a large one nearby, that their finances were not following their low-income students. So that there was a greater discrepancy across the schools. I would say this discrepancy isn't that great, especially when you take a look at, we've got millions of dollars in federal funds that we put into those programs.
So I also have another question related to, I always appreciate to see this school report card. It has a very a lot of wonderful information. But at the same time, I'm kind of concerned about every year when I see it, I'm concerned regarding the students' graduation rate for the three of the schools. And I always see that the Maine South, we do have the great percentage of 97% high graduation rate, but compared to like Maine East, 87%, and then Maine West, 89%. Which means for Maine East, rest of that 13%, Maine West 11%. If they don't graduate on that time, where will they go? Or what will the situation? And as a district's responsibility, how we could able to promote and encourage to have this level to upgrade as much as we can, so that all or many students can able to graduate on time. Is there any effort that we can continuously able to provide it with?
Well, our big effort is moving to competency-based education, which basically, the premise of competency-based education is that a student doesn't move on just based upon seat time. And so this concept of a 4-year graduation rate is a little bit, students can get by, and what tends to happen with some of our kids is once they fall behind, it's very difficult for them to turn around and make up the lost credit. So a couple of things that we've done most recently that we feel will impact that. One, moving to competency-based education. You saw the difference in the math success rates about 3 meetings ago at this point. The other thing that we've done is a full block schedule actually gives a student 4 more times throughout a 4-year career to take a class. In the past, that wasn't the case. So this makes room in a student's schedule to have programming that can help them recoup lost credits when they didn't pass the class in the first place. So the other thing that we've done, which we've had about a 50% success rate with the students who've opted in, is extended the school year into the summer, based upon what students need to actually achieve. And so that has increased the number of students who've been able to gain credits within that year to keep them from falling behind and having to double up and basically play catch up throughout their high school career. So we've put some things in place systemically to hopefully help impact the realities of that. Now, having said that, the pandemic isn't helping anything. We know we had families who their families were strapped. Their students needed to go to work. We know students struggled to make up credits. And these are some of the things that we're doing, as I just mentioned, to make that a reality for them to graduate on time. But we also know that life has gotten in the way the last couple of years, and that's not been, it's been a tough thing for a lot of our families.
It is tough for everyone, but at the same time, I'm sure that we as a district or the 3 principals make sure that we are letting all the students know that we are there for them to support and encourage so that they can able to graduate as much as they can. So that's the same time, right?
We bend over backwards. We do, and when you look at a snapshot of data, you've got to understand that that's one piece of information, and there's a lot of nuance behind that. So let me give you a couple of examples. East and West, more so than South. So why does South always have a higher graduation rate? Well, it's the same reason that you can go to any state in America, and a more affluent school typically has a higher graduation rate than a less affluent school. That's not unique to Maine Township. What does that have to do with? Well, it has to do with things like housing permanence, food security, housing security. We have a higher percentage of transitory students at Maine East, for example, than we do at Maine South. Frankly, we do at Maine West. Students disappear, and so we have to track them. And here's what I will tell you, that the rates that are reported in the SET report card don't actually accurately reflect the actual graduation rate. So a student at Maine East, for example, or Maine West, or Maine South for that standpoint, who is at the end of the 2nd semester of their senior year and needs a credit in the summer or a credit in the next fall to graduate on time, could be counted as someone who didn't graduate, when in fact many of them do get that credit and go on and graduate. So part of it is a function of how the credits are actually, how the graduation rate is actually calculated. That's a 4-year cohort model, and frankly, not every student graduates within 4 years, but we bend over backwards, do gymnastics, and always have to do whatever it takes to help our students succeed and graduate. I'm not happy with graduation rates either, but they do not accurately reflect the number of students that are graduating from our high schools. It's just a function of how the data is collected and reported.
May I ask, since I'm new here, because these numbers also sort of jumped off the page to me, but so this was data for last year, how does it compare to maybe 2-3 years before? Is it about the same?
So if you look at all of the data, there was none in 2020.
Okay.
And so there is no report for 2020. So the last report we have is 2019. In 2019, over the last 3 years, it's been fairly steady in terms of what we've seen. We did see an increase in chronic absenteeism in 2019. We continue to see that. The thing about chronic absenteeism too is that also, as Dr. Wallace alluded to, is the way you calculate that. So, for example, one of the things that really is difficult for us is because it's per period attendance and we have 8 periods, once a student has missed 8 periods, that's 1 day of attendance. So for example, a kid could have trouble getting to first period all the time, which may or may not be, like, let's say that's, for lack of a better, maybe it's a study hall, maybe it's something like that. Maybe it's something, I guess, maybe not highly academic. Well, that starts to accumulate for a student. So the data isn't always clear on what chronic absenteeism is.
So they might be 10 minutes late to first period every day, but then they're in
Or
their
they-
seat for the rest of the day. So you're saying not
I
really
wouldn't say
super
10 minutes. They may miss the entire period of first period. And once they miss that full period, that begins to accumulate.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because you think chronic absenteeism, oh, this kid's not in school.
Right.
Well, the fact is the kid might be chronically late to school or
Okay.
chronically miss first period,
Okay.
but they're not. So we have kids who actually are academically successful who are considered chronic absentee.
Okay.
More than you think, actually. Yeah. So, is it great? No. Are we working on it? Yes. We have attendance is one of our #1 topics at most of our meetings, and we're just trying to really take a look at it.
Yeah, I read that.
But yeah, actually, all of the districts around here, if you look at chronic absenteeism, have seen an increase. But particularly with COVID last year, it took an even big. It took another jump of an already number that was high for us.
How are we, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, you go ahead.
I just, with the, you know, with all the problems that COVID brought, I mean, the kind of, you know, being engaged in school, because I imagine there were lots of kids who really weren't engaged, and in absenteeism and all of the kind of that stuff. How do we make sure that we're maintaining the quality? Like in terms of the kids who, the quality of education that they're getting, in terms of like if a kid comes and says, I don't know, maybe they've only been in two classes out of the whole year, or 2 years, you know, like what you were the example you were given about being late for classes, and they missed that first class for the whole, maybe all year they did that. And do they flunk? Or are we still we're using the competency-based education, but if they don't go to school?
Well, let me be clear too about competency-based education. We have one full discipline in competency-based. That's it at this point. We're rolling others on, so that's
Okay.
not across
All right,
the board. We have a pretty robust MTSS structure. That's multi-tier systems of support. You heard Mary talk about that as being one of the new spaces in the building. And really what we do is use the early warning system that you've probably heard Dr. Wallace talk about to try and identify when students are starting to fall behind as soon as possible so we can intervene as soon as possible. And so a lot of times that works. Sometimes it doesn't, because it's not just about what happens at school. There's a lot of home factors, a lot of social factors that go into that. And probably I would dare say we've had more, principals, you can talk about this, we've had more adult intervention and folks going out to people's houses and trying to connect with them than we probably ever have. Just because the thing that COVID did was take all things that were already problematic, put them under a light and exacerbate them. It's really what happened. And so we have shifted quite a bit in the way that we go after students, try and chase them down, try and support them, try and make up different make up credits, and we have a lot of ways to do that. So whether that's extra coursework, we're talking about a course right now in English, that what would that look like to have a credit recovery course for kids who've been overly affected by the pandemic. What is it? It's the path to burnout right now for most of our staff, to be quite honest, because it's taxing work and it's emotional work, and we're keeping after it.
Yeah, I guess I was just thinking about with the 32% and then the example of what you said about the kid missing it every time. How do you know what would be the fallout of that? I mean,
Well, as students, so we went to, something to help this, to Jen's point about failure rates and graduation, one of the things we shifted to was going to a no grade rather than an F. So the student gets an F throughout the semester, but once they fail a class, they receive a no grade. So why did they do that? Well, it does preserve their GPA. The penalty they have is they didn't earn the credit. So they have to make up that credit. And so that's what happens to a student who doesn't earn the credit. They end up needing to make up that credit. Now, depending upon what the class is, then it's what does it look like to do that. Something a little bit different that we're thinking about for next year, particularly with English, is to have a credit recovery scenario where students are only making up the things they really need to make up, rather than spend an entire year taking English 1 again. Because if you fail English 1, we know you're not going to pass English 1 and English 2 taking them both at the same time. It just doesn't work. And so we're looking at creative ways for them to make up that credit. And the thing that enables us to do that, quite frankly, is being in the competency pie.
thanks.
Also, realistically, it's good to hear Dr. Wallace's comment regarding details, so our numbers are much higher than based on this report percentage. But at the same time, as for the community in general, or as a parent, what to move into our community, send the school to our main township school, they do depend on the general community report or data like this, or through the media as well. And when we see the numbers, percentages, graduation is lower per se, then there will be hesitant at the same time too. So I don't know if how it may be possible, but through maybe sharing through sharing it or giving information to the school report, saying maybe we can provide them accurate rate, say, hey, this number says not really true, our number has been increased to X number of percentage per se. And or maybe on our website too, show the pride of our much higher graduation rate data information per se. And or through the local media, let them know about how healthy our graduation percentage is. Somehow, I think it's important to share or let this information to the community as well. So hopefully, the parents, the community, when they want to send their kids or moving into our community, they can base on and be comfortable, confident about, I guess, moving into our community, basically. So.
And maybe when the full report comes out in April, we can have a longer little presentation, so the entire board understands the metrics involved, what kind of the trending, and also questions or areas that are uniquely posed by COVID and how we're addressing that.
We can absolutely do that. I will say in advance, the data from the last 2 years won't tell us much.
Correct.
And it's probably going to take us, to be quite honest, I would say probably another 3 before we really see sort of how students have reacted to, because again, this is not just our district, right? It's coming from 62, 63, 64, right. Mary C. To see what the impact has been long-term on our students. And so I just say that to know that the data moving forward will be a good snapshot, at least to give us some ideas. But I think it's going to be a while before we see the long-term effects of all of it.
I agree. But I think we can have a nice trend of maybe 3 years before 2019, and then even just kind of a baseline COVID year and see in the subsequent years what it looks like. And I think there's an opportunity for education of the board and the metrics involved, and a little more in-depth kind of succinct presentation.
Sure.
So let's plan on that. Okay. Great. Thanks. All right. FOIA request.
7 have all been processed or being processed.
All right, moving on to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion for 7A to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Collins?
Aye.
Coyle?
Aye.
Gilbert?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Yusuf Abramson?
Aye.
Bessler?
Aye. Do I have a motion to approve the 2020-21 tax levy?
So moved.
Second.
We've been talking about the tax levy for a month.
Yes,
So,
we talked about it at great length.
and great length, and made a meeting and tentative form in November. So the levy, if adopted tonight, will be filed with the county before the first Tuesday in December, as required to by law.
And we have the public hearing on the tax
Have
levy,
public
and
hearing.
increasing it, starting at 6 p.m. Okay.
Use of
Wait,
Abramson?
I just wanted to.
I'm sorry.
Just so everyone, I mean, you guys all know I'm gonna vote no on it because I did last month, but I just wanted, just for the record, just to tell you really quickly why. I'm just not in favor of voting in yes on it based on the increase on all property taxes, the 1.4. And my reasons are just a couple of things. The first thing is we're gonna get this extra $2 million in new growth from the downtown Des Moines TIF expiring, which we hadn't gotten in past years. And we're gonna get that from now going forward. And then the second reason is we're getting, we didn't discuss this tonight, but we discussed it in the past. The district's receiving a large amount of money from the federal government for COVID relief. And we're gonna continue to get that next year. And I think that's gonna sunset sometime in 2023. So we're gonna get it all next year and the year after. So just, my position is that this increase just right now, coming out of COVID, a lot of our families have had a really hard time economically, and because we're getting these additional funds, I just don't think this year it is necessary. But I do want to say it's probably going to pass, and I would hope that we do discuss the abatement in the future.
I agree, Linda. I would definitely like to discuss an abatement. I appreciate your comments, and I've thought a lot about this and read over Mary's report several times. I guess the one issue that I have and why I'm considering voting yes for it is because of my concern that if we do not, that we won't have access to those funds, and because it's compounding, if I'm understanding correctly. And so therefore, I believe that I'm leaning toward voting for it because I think that we want to have access to those funds going forward in perpetuity. And I do believe that, you know, to have the extremely fine schools that we have at all three schools, it does take quite a bit of money to make it all run and work properly. But I do really appreciate your comments because I think they're very valid. Is that a concern to you all, that if we don't vote for it, that we wouldn't have access to those funds?
So you're talking about, so next year if we abate, right, we would not have access to those funds. But what my concern would be, even just abating, is that, so there would be no increase to taxpayers next year. But the year after that, that would automatically increase 1.4%. And then we will be right back here again and probably say yes to another increase. And then in 2 years, taxpayers will be subject to probably a 3 or 4% increase. So that's what I don't like. I'm willing to take a 1 year off and remain flat because of that. And because we're getting the COVID relief funds for at least another year.
And Mary, you want to repeat why it's your recommendation to move forward?
So it is, it's, Member Kilberg illustrated it correctly. It's that compounding impact. So I think that, you know, we've traditionally taken a look at if we're doing well in a snapshot in time, an abatement makes sense to give that money back because it's like saying we're doing well, here's a little give back. But to say that we're going to be able to live within CPI growth for the foreseeable future, we don't know. I mean, the COVID funds are going to sunset. And we talked a lot about the summer program that we would like to extend into the summer so that kids aren't getting a failing grade and don't have to take things off. We're using COVID relief funds to pay for that. My guess is when the COVID funds sunsets, this is a program we're going to want to continue because it's good for kids. And things like that's a new program that will take new money. So I think that compounding and forever giving up piece is why I would recommend passing the levy and then doing the abatement so that it has the same impact this year and looking at it each and every year to see what is the best decision at that snapshot in time.
And Mary, can you explain how does an abatement come back to each taxpayer?
So an abatement just simply, the easiest, we would do debt service. So right now, if you look at that levy, it says 14.7 is what we anticipate in the debt service to pay off the bonds. We would say abate X, 2 million, 1 million, $3 million of that, and only extend 12,000,007, 13,000,007, or whatever the abatement resolution says. So that means that it would remove that money from the amount of money that we collect in the extension. Mechanically, then we would take a transfer from another fund, the educational fund, to fill in that gap in that abatement hole. So we would then transfer 1, 2, or 3 million, whatever the abatement amount is, into the debt service fund to cover that amount. So that mechanically on your tax bill, the rate is lower than what we are forecasting here. By that one.
For 1 year.
For 1 year. An abatement is 1 year.
But
Well, we're going to address that each year, and we will be discussing it this year.
I like to frame it another way. So Linda, you're right about the federal funds, but the federal funds, the responsible thing to do for a district is know that that has a sunset date. So for example, you don't want to build in too many recurring expenses with federal funds knowing that they drop off the table. But the discussion we had previous to this about, the neediness of our students at East, the neediness of our students at West, frankly, we've got students throughout this district that are. We're in an area, our markets, if we look at the league that we're in, the central suburban league, and we've talked about this many, many times. If you look at that per pupil expenditure that we talked about tonight, and we juxtapose that against the other suburban central schools, even the most privileged of them are spending thousands of dollars more per child than we are. We have always, and this was before we were ever required to do it, we have always spent the most per pupil at Maine East, followed by Maine West, followed by South, which is exactly, from a research perspective, what should be done. We were doing it before we were ever required to do it. And so when we talk about, and I've never been one to say we have to spend more money to get better, and I think this board knows that. But that said, my concern is, and the pandemic has accelerated and amplified this, so the lives that our kids lead and the fragility, frankly, of some of the families that we are privileged to serve here. If we want to really attack some of these problems, it's not a cheap venture because it takes people. The amount of manpower that, and frankly, Jen, I understand and appreciate what you say, but our entire ethos is oriented in every one of our schools into moving in heaven and earth to serve every one of our kids. None of us need to be told that. None of us need to be asked to do that. We do that, it is in our blood. And so if we want to do all the things that are possible to do, and we want to increase the service to our kids, to try to truly attract that rate, which is a complex thing, because you're getting into the lives of families who were disrupted when they came here, often, and trying to really triage that and do all those kind of things. Well, that's manpower, and that's dollars. And so we have in this district, and I'm proud of this, we have done more with less in our market, in our area, than any of the other districts. I will stack up what we do in this district against anybody, anywhere. But I would just ask you respectfully to frame this conversation against the backdrop of the other districts against who we want to compare ourselves to. And those dollars that we're talking about, those are dollars that I think are essential to not only the programming that we provide, but the programming that we may need to provide moving forward. And those things are embedding costs. And you don't fund those as grants. Those are things that you would embed and really try to do. We've been lean here. We've tried to operate as efficiently and effectively as we can. But I'm seeing strain against our system like I have never seen it, against our people like I've never seen it, against our families like I've never seen it. And I think as I'm sitting here, I can see plenty of ways, and we're going to be talking about some of those soon with the board, about how to really try to meet the personalized needs of our kids and really address some of the issues. And we have stretched and strained, I think, our staff as far. We've asked them to go very, very far in trying to meet those needs, but we're really, I think, coming up to some really difficult tension points right now. that we're going to have to confront. So for me, it's really taking a little bit different view of this, and there are some things for which we can find some perspective on this issue, and we can just look at our neighbors, who frankly, many of whom don't have the complexity of problems that we have. New Trier doesn't deal with the kind of complex problems that we do, and yet they spend thousands of dollars. And so, you know, our big market, big items, which is labor, isn't any cheaper here than it is in Trier. So I would just, that would be the thing I'd really want to respectfully ask the board to frame against this conversation, this thinking.
And I think, I'm so glad that you spoke up as well, and you and everyone, because those are all very, very important points. My point is, though, because we're not in Trier, and we do have families that are having a really hard time, because we are this year, just this year, getting these additional $2 million. And that COVID money, maybe this year just is not, this is maybe a year that we can skip importing the tax on all. That's really it. But again, we live in a great district, we do a lot. I hear it every monthly how cognizant the dollars are being spent and looking out for the best interest of the kids. So
Okay, so I just want to understand though, so that I vote the way that I think that I should, because I agree 100% with what you're saying with regards to $2 million coming in and asking families for more taxes. But again, if we don't ask for it this year, won't there be a loss moving forward?
you can never regain, I think, just,
Yes.
so when I'm reading, in this year, if we pass the 1.4% increase
Right.
and we abate it, next year the families will not be given that tax increase, but the year after that, they will.
Right.
And so if we vote no, the year after that, they won't, and they'll only be given what we vote to increase
That year,
that year.
in 2 years.
Right? Did I say
Yes,
it right?
it is a forever, the difference between an abatement and not levying is an abatement is 1 year, not levying is forever. Those are the
Compounding
lessons.
forever.
Compounding.
The only way you can get it back is to go back to a referendum in
Yep.
the future to do next time, which is just really hard.
Or in 2 years, increase by whatever.
You
or
can't.
whatever.
You can't.
We
are
capped on
capped.
CPI.
Only a year.
Were we not also, Dr. Wallace, you said something that brought to mind a very, I think, important point that we discussed, is that as a board, I think we're considering doing away with student fees. So that's $350 per student. Obviously, some families may ask for a reduction, or if they're not able to pay for it, but they have to present what their income is. There's a lot of families, right, that make just over that amount, and so then they are stuck having to pay that $350. So I like the idea of asking for a tax levy if it brings in money that might be able to allow the district to do away with student fees across the board. That was something that sort of struck me as possibly being a way to make a bigger financial impact to the whole student, the entire families within the district. Just bringing that up.
I agree, and particularly for families that's got multiple kids, and there are a lot of families, as you rightly point out, that they're just below or above that sort of cutoff, and you talk to 2 kids, now it's 700, and I mean.
Right, so they're, in the example that Mary gave us, was $35 increase on their tax bill, but then possibly getting the 2 children $700 back. So clearly, they're in the green in regards to that.
Well, as you can see, and as we've known, the amount of time we've spent on this, it's very important to us, our students, and our taxpayers, and our money. We take it very, very seriously, and I appreciate the discussion here. Are there any other comments or questions before we take a vote? Okay.
Just that I think it's this choice between, I mean, you have one of these going on, and if it weren't for the fact that it compounded, that's the part that I don't know what it would be otherwise, I hate to pass on it, even though simultaneously, I hate to, for all the reasons you state.
Yeah.
So it's not an easy vote.
I hate to take the risk of not serving our students.
Yeah.
And I think the sunsetting fund is also what's really important to highlight as well.
Thank you for all your comments. Let's take our vote.
Yusuf Abramson.
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Coyle.
No.
Bessler.
Aye. And we will discuss the abatement at our next finance meeting, and we have until March to decide that. Moving on to 9, approval of bids and awarding of contracts. Motion on 9A, formative learning and assessment solution.
So moved. Second.
So this is a product we currently use. It's on a 1-year contract. Because it's over $25,000, we bring this to the board. So students are currently using this, and we're recommending that we continue the contract with formative.
Okay, any questions or comments?
Regarding A, were we going to talk about A contract as well coming soon, or
What do you reference?
formative contract renewal?
Yeah, that's what we're
Yeah,
talking
that's
about.
what
That's what we're doing, right? Just quick question, it's all good, but on that, their services, this is classroom growth tracker. How are they able to providing this tracker to see the classroom growth or higher, lower, and so on? And the second one, it also mentioning that they're doing a anti-cheating detected copy the answers to deter cheating. For example, how are they able to determine, or how could they able to see this?
Well, the first part of your question, most online programming now have built-in growth modules. And so where the student starts and where the students end, because it's all digital, it's easy to track that and then spit out reports as to how students have done. In terms of anti-cheating software, that's pretty common these days as well. And so there's just algorithms that pick up. For example, we've been using Turnitin.com for years, and that's just an online system. Students submit their reports, they're scanned into a computer, they look for other pieces of that information out there on the web or within the system and identify it for the teacher. Pretty common, it's actually pretty common now in most software products.
It never happened when we were on school.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Gilbert.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Coyle.
Aye.
Yusuf Abramson.
Aye.
Bessler.
Aye. We have a motion on 9B, capital projects 2022-2023.
So moved. Second.
This was outlined in a memo from Mary in the board packet. Mary, do you want to?
Yes, so they fall into 3 categories: roofs, parking lots, and the track replacement itself. So these were presented in November. Tonight's board vote is simply an authorization to move forward with bidding. So the board would see these back when the bid, as the bid awards.
Any questions or comments?
Yusuf Abramson.
Aye.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Coyle.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Bessler.
Aye. So a motion on 9C, Pepper accounting adjustment.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
Similar to many times in the past, we approved the contracts and assigned it to Pepper, and this is just the accounting form that tracks that assignment. So this adjustment 15 takes into account the bids that were awarded in November, as well as the allowances and contingency associated with them.
Any questions or comments?
Gilbert. Yusuf Abramson.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Coyle.
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Bessler.
Aye. We have a motion on 9D, amendment to the site license agreement with the District 207 School-Based Health Center.
So moved.
Second.
The School-Based Health Center approached us and asked to increase their replacement hire for their mental health from a 0.8 to a 1.0. In the budget, it's about $11,000 that they're estimating. It could be that it comes out flat based on experience. But in order to do that, we need to amend the budget with them and our site license agreement.
I think that's absolutely imperative. It's still not enough for our students as we talk about the repercussions of, we had an mental health epidemic prior to COVID and now with COVID. So any other questions or comments?
So I sat in on that board meeting, it was School Days Health Center last week, and they asked that we definitely approve this because most of the students that are coming in to be seen are from mental health issues.
Lee,
Aye.
Gilbert,
Aye.
Collins, Yusuf Abramson,
Aye.
Coyle,
Aye.
Dessler.
Aye. Do I have a motion on 9E, Rosemont commencement ceremonies for all three schools?
So moved.
Second.
So, I'm going to be voting against this.
Well, let's,
Oh, yeah.
hang on,
Yeah.
Mary, just explain it and then we'll do more comments.
Sure.
Sorry.
No?
Prior to COVID, we held our graduation ceremonies, all three of them in one day at Rosemont Theater. Rosemont has been holding our deposit since pre-COVID. They've graciously agreed to apply that deposit to graduation 2022 on May 22nd, 2022, last 22s there. And we are recommending that we continue the graduation at Rosemont Theater for.
The deposits for 10 grand.
And
Is it refundable?
It is not refundable. In fact, it was not, we were supposed to have lost it, but we conveniently convinced them to hold it for us. And they've been gracious about that.
So next year we are responsible for $57,000 only instead of $67,000.
I want to get back to Ashley, she wanted it.
So, what was the cost for holding all three beautiful graduations at each of their respective stadiums last year?
If we tracked manpower cost, I know chair rental, equipment, sound system rental, just the bare bones rental costs were well above $30,000.
Per school or
Per all in, but then when you add into that we have to set up both the outside area and the inside area in case it rains, we spend another $20,000, $25,000 in terms of either overtime or comp time that we will award to staff. So we didn't move to Rosemont so much as it's probably a cost washer close enough that we can get by, but it really has to do with not having to limit students in terms of the number of people that they can attend, not having to worry about the weather conditions, and making sure that we have an overall good, I don't want to say that the stadiums were bad. Maybe for those couple people that fainted they were, but, but it is a more consistent experience. And I know, and I'll let the principal speak to this because
I'd like to speak to it too. Because there's a lot of history here. And you had the good fortune of coming in on a year where things aligned and the weather was a little hot, but otherwise it was really nice. And if we could sit here and predict with absolute certainty that every year it would go off like that, the answer would be, oh yes, let's absolutely do that. However, having been here 17 years, and some people, if Mike were here, he's been here much longer, seeing the gymnastics that's happened sometimes just for weather, rain, everything else, we don't have indoor facilities in our schools that just do indoor graduations. And since we've gone to Rosemont, the staffs in the buildings have overwhelmingly been absolutely, because as Mary said, reliability. We know we can execute the graduations. We can get more parents in. We don't ever have to worry about weather. Parking is good. Just logistically, it just works. And it really isn't. I don't know if you've been to any of those, but it's a very nice venue. So it's just from being able to get graduation, like when we put it on the date, like this year, what did we do? We had backup dates. We don't have to have backup dates with Rosemont. We know at 10 o'clock on Saturday morning, Maine East or South or West is going to graduate, and it goes off pretty much without a hitch. and that's worth a lot.
Of course, just want to echo past my 10 years of experience attending almost every year. I think like, what was it? Our school district had about 2 or 3 times, and the rest was Rosemont. And I think we did hold a survey to the parents too, and the parents were most happy about having a graduation at the Rosemont as well. So based on that.
A lot of
and then
that was
whether-
because they could bring more people.
Yeah, mainly.
That
They were
was
very
a big
concerned about how many people they could bring and,
So you can bring more to the stadium. actually.
No, you bring more road.
No, he wanted
Okay, so I'm just gonna throw out my experiences. I have had 2 kids that graduated, one at Rosemont and one at the outside. I thought the outside was magnificent. And really logistically, I know Ben, you and I talked about it, kind of a nightmare, right? It was really hard.
We pulled it off.
You pulled it off. It was fantastic, and I can't even tell you the amount of kids that talked about how cool it was to graduate on their football field. So I feel really passionate about like my experience also, and the parents' experience, how cool it was compared to Rosemont. But I do want to hear from the principals to talk about what your thoughts are. That's the first thing. And then the 67,000, is this only for 1 year?
Only for 1 year.
So, okay, so that's a concern, losing that amount of money.
I mean, we spend about $67,000 on graduation, whether we hold it in the district or at Rosemont.
But we
would lose the 10,000.
Oh, we lose 10,000, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
we'd lose the deposit.
We would lose the deposit.
I'm inclined for this year, I don't want to lose $1, much less 10,000. And then also, we're still under construction. You know, just the logistics of, but it's something we can revisit because we do have new facilities and buildings in a year from now. We're talking about this year, but then we have this historical context, which is better because I understand the aesthetics and the beauty because I have 4 kids in the police system. But I want to know what the principals have to say.
I would just say that the war that literally goes on the phone with tickets,
Yes.
the couple of weeks before graduation is really pretty significant. And you've got, I mean, the worst curse outs I've ever had on the phone were over graduation tickets and just like ruining people's lives and everything. And I don't think we should make decisions based off of that, but the anguish that families go through and not being able to come see their child or their relative is it was really heated last year, obviously. But we can offer more seats at Rosemont. That alone, to me, is the deciding factor. So I just want to put my vote out there as, I know I'm not a board member, but as a principal, that's
No, we want to know what you
That's
have.
what I would say.
We appreciate your leadership, all of you.
I've attended but not run a graduation at Rosemont. But what I will say is that I would feel substantially more comfortable in our ability to offer accessibility to people with mobility issues at Rosemont than at the stadium. That was a consideration that we had to put some time and effort into, and it wasn't an easy fix. And I think those people had a lesser experience in some ways than their peers who couldn't ascend the stadium steps. And I don't think that's nearly as much of an issue at Rosemont.
Thank you. Dr. Ray?
Yeah, I agree with both Eileen and Ben. Mike and I talked a lot about the weather and that being just a factor. We also talked about ability or mobility to use the stands. And we talked about graduation tickets. And like we just talked about graduation rate, for a lot of our families at Mamie's, they are the first to graduate from high school, and then to limit their families from having that experience, it's really difficult. It's a different conversation than Ben might have, but it's a real conversation.
Yeah, same.
They might not yell, but they feel it.
Yeah, we have a family coming from another country that was so excited, and how dare we limit, I'm just sitting on the phone with them like almost in tears.
So it was limited last year at
No,
the college?
that's what was.
You couldn't have as many people as you wanted?
You
in
can't
the
have as many
stadium?
people in the stadium, there's just no way.
Not enough seating?
Yeah,
Because of COVID?
Yeah, it's like a whole giant, it's like going to a Bears game, frankly. Like, it turns into a scalping match outside. So I just think if you can, where you go where you can offer more seats, you can offer more seats at Rosemont.
How many tickets does each family get when we hold it at Rosemont?
Oh, 6 or 8.
6 for unassisted?
I have 6 in my meeting,
But I
and
think
I
for
had
South
10
it's
people,
6,
I had
right?
10 people.
Yeah,
in my-
we put a limit on it, but then we start to release tickets as families either, we kind of get like our own little exchange going. So we've never turned anybody away at South, I can say that, with full.
And South has the biggest demand generally.
Well, you persuaded me then by that. I would not want, I don't love the idea of any family not being able to come to a partner in graduation.
That's what persuaded me the first time,
Yeah.
and I was reluctant because there is something very charming and personal about your own field.
And then talk about what happens when it rains,
I remember
because
there was a
then
whole-
it's very limited who you
Well, like
bring in.
to Ken's point, we had 6 alternative dates with times. And so we had people that had to cancel a whole bunch of things. It's important to do it for graduation because it's ultimately one of the biggest moments of our, year. But at the same time, gosh, I was on the text thread with a bunch of other principals. We're all saying, check the weather day for like a month, at 6 o'clock in the morning, and it's just, we hit the jackpot last year on weather. We're not gonna hit statistically, the Farmer's Almanac is not putting, graduation in good stead next year, so.
Well, and I remember historically that being an issue,
It's
so.
good to be out again, regardless of the COVID, so.
We have to talk a little bit about the acoustics.
That's it.
Specifically at Maine East, we're near Lutheran General Hospital, and we're right on a flight pattern. So, there is some definite management of calling people's names and different things so that the family can hear that above the sound.
Just one less thing for a family to have to worry about. They know they're gonna get to have a graduation. It's not gonna have to be shuffled or changed.
Okay, again, we're voting on this here. I think we're gonna take the roll call now. In fact, I know we are.
Lee,
Aye.
Collins, Coyle, Yusuf Abramson, Kilberg, and Vessel.
Aye. Greatly appreciate how much this board cares about our issues in our agenda and make our decisions. There's no one of us. Okay. Do I have a motion on number 10, bond parameters?
So moved.
Second.
This resolution sets forth the conditions under which we can sell bonds. The bond sale is scheduled to be completed in January with a closing in February. This outlines the amount of bonds, which is not to exceed 65 million, the total note price, and then this parameters resolution is good for 6 months. It also dictates that the ability to sign off on closing is dedicated to the board president and the superintendent.
We've talked about this.
Yes, we talked about this
as
in.
well, but are there questions or comments for Mary or with another right now? Okay.
Coyle, Lee,
Aye.
Yusuf Abramson, Kilberg, Collins, Vessel.
Aye. We have a motion on number 11, acceptance and approval of the 2020-2021 audit.
So I move.
Thank you, Mary.
So we first started talking about the audit acceptance in September. We still have not gotten final federal guidance in terms of auditing the ESSER funds. However, in order to comply with our bond covenants, we are going to be accepting the audit, issuing it, and then should federal guidance come out and they make it retroactive and have us to do additional testing and it changes the report, we will reissue the report. So that likelihood of that happening is slim.
Thank you for your attentiveness to that. Any questions or comments?
Lee,
Aye.
Yusuf Abramson, Kilberg, Collins, Coyle, Vessel.
Aye. Do I have a motion on number 12, approval of the 2021-2022 tuition cost per pupil?
So moved.
Second.
This,
And can you explain, like, for some newer board members too, the history of this and why we do this?
sure. So should we have a student who wishes to attend one of our schools but resides outside of the school district, we are required by law to charge them a tuition cost. based on a calculation, and this is the calculation that the state has done on what your per pupil tuition cost is. We used the calculation from the 2021 school year to impact the 21-22 tuition cost. So this tuition cost here is this calculation. Last year, as you guys are aware, our average daily attendance dropped because our chronic absenteeism rise, and our expenditures just increased about 1%. So between those two factors, we'll see about a 7.8% increase in our tuition cost per pupil.
And again, based on my 10 years experiences serving, I know that we never went up more than 20,000. I think this year.
This is the first
time
I don't know,
20,000
ever, but
something.
in a first time, this might be the first time that we have crossed the $20,000.
That's what I recall, because since 2013, average was about 18,000, 300, 400, 500 or so, and then most recently 19,000, and then this year 20,000, couple hundred. And then less than, I know Dr. Waters was mentioning, I did ask about approximately how many students are need to pay this, and it's less than 10 people. A small
Currently
number.
it's 0. Yeah.
It's never very many.
1 to 2.
Never very one or two, yeah, they're very small.
Yeah, we don't have any this year.
Voluntarily.
Yeah. Keep moving on.
I just want to confirm, so it's the 19,891, right? Because I think in the packet it's different.
Yeah, I think the packet might be right, but 19 something
It does say
plus
20 in the packet.
1%, 20.
No, it is 21,450.99.
Let's amend this approval then, because the approval's got
Oh.
19,891 in it.
Okay, what's the exact amount?
21,450.98.
Okay, so do I have a motion to approve
Or is
the,
it 9.3? There's 9.3 and 9.3.
That's printed so small I can't read it, Sean.
okay. We're going to do a new motion, so it's perfectly clear for the record.
9.3.
Do I have a motion for approval of the 2021-2022 tuition cost per pupil of $21,450.93?
So, second.
Gilbert.
Aye.
Lee.
Aye.
Collins.
Aye.
Coyle.
Aye.
Lisa Abramson.
Aye.
Vessler.
Aye. Do I have a motion on number 13, IGA transfer of property from District 207 to PACE?
So moved. Second.
The district wants to donate 2 small parcels along Dempster at Main East for them to build bus stop shelter. This is a resolution that directs us to do that to have the township treasurer who has title to our property make that transfer, which is why it is a long and convoluted resolution. But that is the gist of it. There's a map that identifies the 2 small parcels. We believe that this is a benefit for our students and the community.
And when you mentioned Mary with small parcel, are we just for like a bus
Yes,
size?
it's a little tiny. just
So
a
roughly
bus.
about maybe 6 foot or
Size
8
of a bus.
foot or so, something like that. Because you cannot read this out, the number is pretty wide.
Yeah, so it's about that big. So that's probably about 10 feet by 13, I would have to guess.
2 of them.
So Pace has to own those shelters?
They take care of them. So this is a good thing. This is in spots where we wouldn't use them anyway, and this will help keep our kids out of the weather while the buses pick up and drop
I
off.
think it makes it easier for insurance purposes that, from time to time, those get hit and damaged. So them owning the property and having to restore everything, I just think this is the way that they are now doing it. I think in the past, they may have just asked for the right to use land, but with anything, they are getting more formalized in what they do.
Any other questions or comments?
Lee. Collins. Aye. Gilbert. Aye. Coyle. Aye. Lisa Abramson.
Aye.
Vessler.
Aye. Do I have a motion motion on number 14, approval of the amended school calendar 2022-2023. Okay, Sean?
This is just the addition of the Election Day holiday that Governor Pritzker had announced after we had already approved a calendar without that day. So it's just adjusting the calendar. It's a very minor change, doesn't affect any of our sending districts or teacher work days.
So I guess that day will be a non-student attendance day, and the district will still be, 4 days above the recommended days the state does 176. But is there a reason not to put that day back in as an instructional day is there no place to put it once it?
Well, if we do put that back in, we're going to either extend the school year or take a day from a typical break period to do that. And that's typically not popular with our families. And it's a day that you typically wouldn't make up for inclement weather. So every year we've had a minimum of 176 since they've gone to it, but we haven't always had 181, depending upon inclement weather. So that's why we didn't look to put it back in.
And, so this year, you also amended the calendar by saying the students won't be in attendance on January 3rd.
Yes.
And that was an amendment. Will that also be next year? The students won't be in attendance the day after the holiday break?
That's not the plan at this point.
Okay. So we won't lose another day.
Not looking to, no, not at this point.
I'm a stickler for school days.
Yeah, and that's fine. We actually have, of the school districts around, we actually go to school more than most of the districts around here, by 4 or 5 days.
And the weather has been superly favored to us due to, let's say like 4 years ago, early January, we had like 3 days where have to be closed due to snowstorm and everything. But we've been having a great year for the past 2 years.
Well, we now have the ability to go to school remotely in a way we didn't before. So even in years where we used all of our days and went to 176, it probably won't be the case moving forward.
As much as I'd like to discuss the weather patterns,
Yes.
I don't think we can predict those. So it may not be learning possibility now, so I think that addresses concerns about not having enough students. So 15, moving on to new club proposal. Oh,
Yeah.
just ready to move it.
Chilton.
Aye.
Collins. Lee.
Aye.
Yusuf Abramson.
Aye.
Coyle. Bessler.
Aye. All right, moving on to 15 new club proposals. 15A, the Green Team Club, I think we're going to table that until our January meeting. Do I have a motion on, I'm going to do it as one motion, and then the principals can speak up or questions can be addressed on any of them, because they're pretty self-explanatory. So do I have a motion on 15 new club proposals, B through F?
Second.
Okay, anybody have any questions on any of the clubs, for any of the principals or anyone else?
Pretty standard.
Nope, okay.
Kilburn.
Aye.
Yusuf Abramson.
Aye.
Collins. Coyle. Lee.
Aye.
Bessler.
Aye. All right, number 16, calendar items are just informational. Any additions or changes? If we have no school on January 3rd, our meeting still is on January 3rd? No. Okay. Can you take note of that?
Yeah. It's still a.
Happy New Year.
It's a-
Shocking return.
No one will go anywhere.
Okay. Any additional public comments? Seeing none, do I have a motion to go into closed session number 18 for the purpose of student personnel, review of closed session minutes, probable imminent or pending litigation, collective negotiating matters, and security procedures and the use of personnel and equipment to respond to an actual, a threatened, or a reasonable potential danger to the safety of employees, students, staff, the public, or public property.
So moved. Second.
Collins. Coyle. Kilburn. Lee.
Aye.
Yusuf Abramson.
Aye.
Bessler.
Aye. Okay, and closed. I have a motion to return to open session?
So moved.
Second.
Okay.
Collins?
This is to, are you voting yes to return to open session?
Yes.
Yes. Coyle?
Aye.
Kilmer?
Aye.
Lee? Yusuf Abramson?
Aye.
Bessler?
Aye. A motion on personnel action items 20A to E as amended.
So moved.
Yusuf Abramson?
Aye.
Lee?
Aye.
Kilmer?
Aye.
Coyle?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Bessler?
Aye. No other items. Do I have a motion on 22A, approval of closed session meeting, closed session minutes from our November 1st, 2021.
So moved.
Second.
Lee?
Aye.
Yusuf Abramson?
Aye.
Collins?
Aye.
Coyle?
Aye.
Kilmer?
Aye.
Bessler?
Aye. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for your service in 2021.
Yes.